Hello, Gears and Gaming fans. Welcome to episode 2 of the Gears Intel podcast, a Gears of War focused fan show bringing you discussions, ramblings, theories, thoughts, and the occasional Gears of War hot take. Come with us as we embark on a journey through the Gears universe, visiting all aspects of the franchise, along with many other games and all things Gears of War adjacent. I'm KDB, and forming up for the panel today are the two other legs of the Gears Intel tripod. Up first, joining us from north of the border, a man who's always happiest with a controller in one hand and a whiskey in the other, even though that makes gaming really difficult. It's Mr. David Smiley. How are you, David?
I am good. No whiskey today. We are recording pre-whiskey shed. So.
It's too early for that, even in Scotland.
And then, yes, also here to destroy our chances of monetization on YouTube due to his love of four-letter words. It's a man with more tattoos than there are Star Wars shows on Disney+. It's Alex Aldridge. Hello, Alex.
How the is everybody doing?
Doing fantastic.
Wonderful.
Yes. Nice to be with you again, chaps. I think first episode went well.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah. It's been.
How you all been since we last had a catch up?
I feel like, hairs have fallen out. You know, we've gained a few more wrinkles since the last episode.
Is this the one time that for a cup of coffee, that saying for a cup of coffee is literally true? It's been a cup of coffee since we did a podcast together.
Been a cup of coffee, been a hot minute.
Yeah.
So this is episode 2. We're back, and today, the first episode we talked about our first experience of Gears of War and all that. We're turning our focus today to a more current affair of Gears of War. From now on the podcast, whenever we've got a news story, now Gears of War news is obviously going to be kind of few and far between, but it will happen, and I have a strong feeling that Gears of War news is going to be ramping up in the coming year. But whenever we've got news, we're going to hand it over to David, who's going to be our news anchor for Gears Intel, and give us, refresh our minds on the hot headlines of Gears of War. So David, please do remind us what I think is probably one of the biggest Gears of War news headlines of recent times. Why are we here today?
Why are we here today? I was trying to think of a nice name for this, but the best I could come up with, because I'm not very inventive, was Cog Hole for the news hole for the news. So
Cog Hole.
What
grinds my cogs with David Smiley.
I didn't really think of news when you said that, but let's go with it.
I was saying we've got a nice space. We've not had the decorators in yet, so I've put out some deck chairs. We've got some crusty 3-day old tuna sandwiches, so make yourself comfortable while we discuss some Gears news.
Perfect.
It's got to be the elephant in the room, isn't it? The announcement of the Netflix show. So we've got here, so I think it's probably easiest if we just read the tweet that Netflix put out at 7:05 p.m. on the 7th of November 2022. Gears of War was released 16 years ago today, and to mark the occasion, Netflix has partnered with the Coalition to adapt the Gears of War video game saga into a live-action feature film. What constitutes a saga, by the way?
Is that question?
Like Lord of the Rings would be a saga, right?
I think so. I guess you've got to have more than 3 things, because that's a trilogy.
Yeah, it's more than a trilogy.
Yeah.
Yes, into a live-action feature video game saga into a live-action feature film, followed by an adult animation series with the potential for more stories to follow. I.e., if it does well, we'll do more. Up to and no further beyond than 3 seasons, because that seems to be what Netflix like to do before they bow out.
Yeah. I mean, got a few thoughts on Netflix. Sorry. So we can just start. David, what was your initial reaction to that news?
Tentative intrigue, I guess. It's an interesting announcement. It's something that I think a series that it maybe once was, perhaps isn't anymore, but is perhaps looking to get back to the table in terms of sort of elite gaming franchises. It's something that they should be doing. It's something that Sony have been utilising for a long time now, or certainly getting the cogs in motion to make and monetize and expand their popular franchises a bit more, and something that Microsoft traditionally hasn't done. I guess they've got the Halo show now, but other than that, I can't really think of anything else that they've done. So this is a step forward that is promising, because it means that Microsoft aren't looking to let Gears slip away anytime soon. This is something that they see to be around for the long haul, which is nice. But as with everything, the proof will be in the pudding, and it depends how they do it. This could be incredibly amazing, depending on what direction to go with, but it could also equally be utter garbage. And I don't know. What do Netflix have a track record? They did well with the Castlevania stuff.
Castlevania is amazing.
Yeah, it's so up and down. You say Netflix's track record. I mean, what I will say is, so that announcement says live action movie and the animated TV show. What we're going to do today is we are going to focus mainly on the live action movie, because I think we could talk about the animated side again for a whole episode, which we're going to do. So yeah, you can mention the animated stuff, that's fine, but the main focus here is that live action stuff. I mean, announcement wise, I think you said a few things which kind of hits the nail on the head. First of all, it's just kind of reassuring to know that the franchise isn't dead and that they're doing things. It feels like after being quiet for a while, there's been a couple of things recently where it's just starting to set gears alight again, and this is a big part of that. Now, obviously, we have no context to this announcement. They've just said we're making it, and I don't know about you two, but this is not the first time I've heard that a Gears of War movie is coming. I think we've been hearing that this is happening probably since like Gears of War 2. Even when Gears 5 launched, Rod Ferguson was doing a stream at E3, and they said that they partnered with Universal. They showed a logo on the screen. The Gears movie is coming, he said. Never f***ing happened. So
yeah.
But I don't know. Netflix like to throw money at stuff and like to just churn things out. So I've never felt more confident about it actually happening than with this. So I was excited to hear that news. I've got lots of thoughts which we're going to get into today. But yeah, Alex, what was your initial reaction to this announcement?
I guess probably mirroring what you guys have said, that it was nice to see that. Well, on the one hand, it's nice to see that the franchise isn't dead. But on the other hand, I did start to think, is it dying? And you're trying to give it some life support here with this, or at least, as we mentioned last episode, bring it back into this consciousness and branch out into a new media to bring in more casual fans. As long as it's as violent as possible, I'm going to be happy, I think.
Yep.
And I think that Gears as a franchise is so Hollywood as it is. It's a summer blockbuster game every time it comes out. It just feels tailor-made, and as you said, we've been expecting this to happen for so long. I think this was announced, as you said, right back when Gears 2 came out, did you say? It's like 2008, I think this was talked about, wasn't it? It's like a long time. It's not quite the same project, as you said. It's not Universal anymore, it's Netflix, but there's obviously maybe stuff to use already, who knows? But we don't even know how long it's going to take for this to happen. I imagine, I know we're not talking about it today, but I imagine the animation is going to come first. Yeah,
I am not crazy about the time we live in where you hear about stuff before it exists. I sort of long for the days of not knowing a movie was coming out until I walked into the cinema and saw a poster for it. Whereas these days you will hear about stuff getting green lit. Oh, they're just in talks. This is happening, and this is happening. But they've announced that it's happening. There's nothing about plot, nothing about cast, nothing about crew. So it is likely years away. It's years away. At the least a couple of years away. It's not going to be here next summer unless they're really weirdly marketing it where it's been in production for a while, which it just wouldn't, because you just hear about this stuff. There's no surprises anymore. There would have been leaks, but they've confirmed it's coming. I think you said something very poignant about Gears being very Hollywood, and you're right. I think this is if this is going to work, so budget is one of my first questions. This either has to be one of the most expensive things Netflix have ever made, or they need to do something really stripped back and maybe kind of not what people are expecting if it's going to work with a smaller budget. But I would prefer the former. This is Resident Evil has done lots of stuff, and I'm going to talk more about this in a bit, where I feel like Resident Evil could be stripped back more. Those Anderson movies got a bit ridiculous and over the top Hollywood, where I would have preferred a more sort of pulled back tone. Actually, with Gears of War, I'm quite fine with a bombastic sci-fi
Yeah.
shooter, gore,
Yep.
like go all out. And also two other big things. So it's going to need to be, it's an ensemble cast. I'd be surprised if it's just a couple of people. Gears of War is about, you know, the squads, the groups of people. So in theory, you need like a couple of big actors and 2 supporting actors plus others. So you can have loads of cast, ensemble cast, and it's going to be effects driven because of what it is. It's Gears of War. You could have a mix of practical and CG, but
I would love to see some practical effects.
me too. And either way, it's going to be expensive. So
Yeah.
they cannot skimp on this. So balancing that kind of quality and money and budget, I think Gears of War has the sway. And I'm not going to jump ahead again too much. David, I'm going to let you sort of expand on some more thoughts. But yeah, what do you think? Any thoughts before we move on? What are Netflix dealing with here? You know, is this an accident waiting to happen, or do they need to go all out and just spend all the money?
You guys have largely covered my feelings on it. But like I say, this could go two ways. This could be absolutely fantastic. It could be a big bombastic, silly, but fun and filled with heart movie.
Yeah.
And it could also be a complete disaster. They could even go. I mean, I don't think they will, but I mean, like depending on budget, they could do a smaller, more contained horror movie, I think is something that they could go for. I don't think that's the right choice. I don't think they should, but it's an option, I guess, because like, what is it, Act 3 of the first Gears of War game, when you go to that abandoned power plant, there is a sort of horror vibe to that area.
Yep.
I don't know. The question that was jumping at me, and maybe it's two questions. What do you think I guess the two questions are, what do you think they'll do and what do you think they should do in terms of the characters? Is this a Marcus Phoenix Delta Squad story, or is this a different story in the Gears universe?
Yeah, exactly. And I will hold on to that thought because I think we can get to that more specifically. But before we kind of muse about what we think will be right for this, I think it's important to kind of give some context to video game adaptations as a whole. Quite frankly, I feel like saying a mixed bag is being kind. They're generally shit. And this is something where more recently, I would say we've had some of the better video game live action, movie adaptations. We look at movies like Sonic and Detective Pikachu, which have both done incredibly well, made loads of money, and are generally seen as pretty good movies. And then you look at further back, I've mentioned the Anderson Resident Evil movies, you know, and I think any movie Uwe Boll made was a video game adaptation. But then we've also had the Mortal Kombat movie last year, which I thought was pretty good for a video game adaptation.
Right. Yep.
Yeah,
and
I've been wanting to watch
It's
that.
been so up and down, but video game movies often seem to suffer, I think, in the script departments. And I think for a long time there hasn't been really people in Hollywood that understand video games. But we live in a different world now with streaming and Netflix, and maybe people willing to take more risks. But yeah, Alex, what's your feeling on video game adaptations in general? Any highs and lows for you? And how does that feed back into Gears?
Wow, video game adaptations, they're just a constant heartbreak, aren't they? They're almost as inevitable as death and taxes, that they're going to be shit. I find it interesting as well, this is going to go a bit of a tangent here, but the fact that the Bioshock movie has been sort of reanimated as the corpse, rather the corpse has been reanimated of it. It feels like maybe there's more of a focus to get back into this kind of thing again after some really weird years of either really low budget Uwe Boll stuff, as you say, or high profile stuff that's got no relevance to the source material whatsoever. Yeah. David and I recently spoke about the Welcome to Raccoon City, which, while incredibly reverent to the source material,
is a bad movie.
Suffered from every type of filmmaking problem you can think of.
Yeah.
But that mix, or at least that the way that they reference what's actually supposedly the source of it, is what I would want to see from something to do with Gears.
We're long by the days of The Rock doing the first person perspective.
Doom,
in the
yeah.
Doom movie.
That was a cool bit of that.
I mean, it was a
shit
cool
film.
bit. This is what you could sort of, people might shit on that, but I enjoyed that section of the film.
Really, I mean, people talk about the Silent Hill film being all right, but I've never seen that.
The first Silent Hill movie, for a long, I would say, until I'm not a huge fan of the recent Sonic the Hedgehog movies.
I'm not either. I
Detective
think they're terrible.
But it's so funny. They're geared towards children, which is ironic considering the people that love Sonic the Hedgehog are not children. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be a kids' movie, but they leaned into it being a children's movie, which is why I kind of connect with it less. It's sort of lacking in comedy and stuff, jokes that children will like. Anyway, there have been some, I would say, better attention to detail, more care gone in some video game adaptations. But Silent Hill for a long time, so that's 2004, 5, something like that. Yeah, was not only kind of paid decent homage to the game, was actually scary and brutal, and it did things that it felt less Hollywood than the couple of Resident Evil movies that had come out at the time, and other terrible video game adaptations, even further back in the past. But I just I think we now live in a time where more money is being thrown at stuff, more risks are being taken, and I think you just have to look at, in the last 24 hours, the second trailer for the Last of Us TV show has come out, and I know a lot about The Last of Us. I've never played it, but I see the trailer for the TV show, and I'm like, I can tell that talented people are working on this show, care and attention has gone into it, and I do think there is a shift in attitude towards this stuff.
You said about it being a risk. Risks need to be taken, and I think a positive sign that we're seeing more recently is that they are managed risks, where the companies involved with the IP itself are taking more of an involvement in it,
which is so important.
That's the best thing to have come out of this announcement, is that they are working with the coalition on the film. Because you only have to take a quick look at that recent Mario Bros movie trailer that came out. It's very clear Nintendo were involved and said, "Oh, by the way, make sure you put Mario Kart in it and Donkey Kong," and it's becoming something that they're actually going to be. Yeah, exactly. Whereas the first Mario movie, they had basically no interaction with whatsoever, and the guys were getting drunk on set and all that kind of shit. So the fact that they are allowing these things to be taken off their hands, but also staying involved to make sure it stays true to what it's supposed to represent, is the biggest reassurance for me that this might not be absolute garbage.
I think that's completely fair. David, what's your sort of general thoughts on video game movies? Do you have any highs or lows or thoughts about it as how it relates to Gears?
Again, I generally agree with you guys. I was trying to think of good and bad ones earlier on. I don't actually even know what the general consensus is, but I thought the Uncharted movie was quite fun.
I haven't seen that.
No.
It didn't feel like I feel like it obviously didn't feel like they were sticking to the source material exactly. They had basically just thought, Nathan Drake's a bit like a wacky Indiana Jones, and then they sort of made a movie around that. And I think that, for me, generally worked. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not an amazing movie, but as a sort of mindless, just a bit of a fun romp, it does do that. You touched on the Resident Evil movie. I fully agree with everything Alex says about it. I still find myself quite enjoying it.
Yeah,
I just think it just depends what am I coming to this movie from? Am I looking for it to win an Oscar? No. Am I looking for it to entertain me for a little while? Yes. I just really want to know what direction they're going to take this. This could be so much fun, but I just don't know how they're going to tie it together. This is going to be my broken record for this entire episode. This is going to either be fantastic or it's going to be utterly awful. I don't see it being mediocre. I think that's
the worry I would have, is that just go fucking mental with it and make sure it's totally insane. Don't make it Assassin's Creed. No. Don't make it Hitman. Don't make it Prince of Persia. Mm-hmm. Like, actually go all in on being this crazy. I mean, it's called Gears of War, so needs to have a war in it, which is going to cost some money. You can't have, although David pointed out that the haunted element of the power plant would be interesting. You can't really scale it back the way that you did that Welcome to Raccoon City, where you can just plop them in 3 rooms of a mansion and be like, it's the mansion, lads. This is going to have some war in it. So you're going to need a lot of stuff going on.
I guess maybe the cartoon maybe opens itself up for them to sort of push the different sort of parts of the series. So you can have
Yep.
big war episodes, you can have smaller, more horror-based
it
episodes.
might be an
you
offset,
can,
mightn't it, in terms of
Yeah.
we'll put all the action in this and keep the human elements to the humans, I suppose.
Yeah, but this one is just, if they're going to do it right, it just has to be big, like you say, big, bombastic, big budget,
It
great effects.
It has to be big budget, like I say, but for all the reasons we've mentioned. Netflix are known to spend some money. They've spent some money on some terrible projects as well. But this is, it's an established IP. In theory, it's less risk to spend money on it. And, if they create the right buzz, and this kind of now feeds into the next talking point, which is okay, so we know it's happening now. And what kind of route should it take, or do you think it will take? Is there anything out there that you think it could be similar to or take reference notes from that would, either ensure it's a success or just stuff that you'd like to see as a Gears and gaming fan? Alex, what do you think?
I suppose it could go down the route of being like really silly Starship Troopers style.
I wrote Starship Troopers, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
I just watched that recently. I love that movie. It's
As
got.
we're talking about-
Sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, but
Right.
when you mentioned Starship Troopers, it's really just jumped into my mind. There's a lot of similar imagery going on here as well, because there is a slightly fascist regime sort of under narrative to the Gears of War universe, in the same as there are Starship Troopers. There's like the controlling nature and ways to control their population that Gears of War used. I mean, and then there's this sort of slightly more dramatic stuff that I think I mentioned in a chat to you both earlier, where they literally like bomb their own population to try and create to try and fix the problem with the Horde. But yeah, sorry, Alex, I didn't mean. That just sort of jumped to my mind that there are maybe more Starship Trooper crossovers than.
Yeah, I didn't have much to elaborate on with Starship Troopers anyway, so thanks for doing the heavy lifting there, mate. I think the key element for me that I would want to see in this is, because it's coming from a video game medium where we are coming from graphical presentation, I don't want to see graphical presentation in a live action film, because I've seen CGI Gears already. I've played it.
Yeah.
Good point.
So I think, but to something like Lord of the Rings and how they did like the Uruk-hai, and I think you transpose that for a Locust costume.
Yep.
I am all in on that, and I want to see like ridiculous real gore rather than just Dave Batista shooting a CGI Locust. I don't want to see that. I want to see it looking real, and as David said, his favourite word, I want to see it looking visceral.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you could save the CG for the impossible stuff.
Exactly.
You can make somebody become a Locust, and again, that's still expensive. It's expensive to do practical. It's cheaper to do. It's funny. It's cheaper to do CG. It's still really expensive, but it's very expensive to do practical. My notes, I put Starship Troopers. I don't think I mentioned that Last of Us trailer. I don't want it to be like The Last of Us, a tear jerker. Really, no. I think it needs to be more like Aliens or Starship Troopers. Maybe even like Slither and Tremors as well. Movies like that, which leans into that. It doesn't mean it's devoid of horror. It can have the horror stuff, and the Gears of War is sort of in this weird. It sells itself as a horror, but it's far more just sci-fi. It has horror elements into it. It's not a full-blown
It's
horror.
like overwhelming threat horror, isn't it? Rather than intimate psychological stuff.
Exactly, and so it doesn't need to be psychological. We can have some quiet moments. Maybe the intro is terrifying, and there's a scene later on that's terrifying, but it's mostly that bombastic stuff. The krill, exactly, yeah, and I think the
krill,
the juvies are pretty terrifying and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, Emergence Day is that could have a horror element, because it's going to be this sort of over the top, almost like Japanese style Godzilla movie thing, isn't it? Where people are screaming and running in terror in the streets and whatnot.
I think this is, I kind of mentioned it already, this is an occasion where I'm perfectly fine with that over the top sci-fi action rather than being. It can still be grounded, but I don't need to keep my feet on the ground too much. I would like to have some fun with this. because I don't know how else you do it unless it's a story that's just so disconnected from what we know of Gears of War, which can still be done, differently. I think of, we're not talking about the animation too much today, but I think of how the Animatrix did stuff differently that was slightly disconnected from the Matrix. You can tell those stories, different styles and tones, fantastic. But this is the Gears of War live action movie. Just make it the Gears of War live action movie.
Do you think they drop you in sort of years after E-Day, or do you think they sort of depict the whole fall of man sort of thing?
This is going to be my next point. So, what are we looking at focusing on? Now, I don't think you should just remake the game. I think there's no point in doing that. I'm happy for sections of that to maybe be dumped in an opening sequence, or like you say, Emergence Day is in an opening sequence. Maybe we're set before Emergence Day happens. I think it needs to come at it from a unique angle, and tell a story I would prefer it told a story within the world rather than just telling me a version of Gears of War 1 or Gears of War 2. I don't know, David. Did you have any more thoughts on that?
Not really. I mean, I think the easiest thing to do, especially from a narrative perspective, is just to have the whole thing having happened, and then you can have flashbacks, and that's how you can do your character development in the flashbacks, and then you can save the sort of present day stuff for all the action, the bombast, and things like that. I think that's the way to do it. I don't know, really.
Yeah, I don't dislike that flashback idea. Sort of pop you in right in the middle of it, and then here's how we got to this stage. Maybe even go back to Marcus's trial and the reasons behind all of that.
I agree. Flashbacks will be a great way to to reference those points that people are looking for, and because people are going to want recognizable stuff.
It's also a way to flesh out a character that is quite he doesn't say a lot and he does a lot of grunting. That's the way you sort of add character to someone that acts like that.
They did that. I mean, not in film wise, but they did that a lot in the recent Wolfenstein games, where they did the flashbacks for Blazkowicz in I can't remember which game it was now. But he's this big sort of muscular army dude who doesn't really say a lot, has no emotion other than pissed off, and then to do all that flashback going back to his childhood stuff. It's proven that kind of thing can work and make you think differently about a character that really had no substance or any other dimension before.
And I don't want to jump ahead here because we're going to talk about some casting stuff in a minute, but character wise, I mean, my impulse reaction to it is Marcus Phoenix should not be a lead character in this show. In this movie, sorry. Marcus Phoenix could be a lead character in the animated series. I think in this movie, we have no idea where it's going to be set. I would prefer it set, I don't want to say current day, that's not right. So, the events have happened, the world is established. We don't need the origin story. We know what it is. We can reference it in flashbacks, like you mentioned. So then you look at characters, and okay, who are we dealing with? Are we just lifting the 4 main characters from the game? I hope not. I think the previous 2 games have gone a direction where Marcus is like they're passing the torch and he's a supporting character. I'm perfectly happy for the movie to do something like that, or Marcus Phoenix to be this, this person that they have to go to, or or comes along or saves them halfway through or something. I think he has to be in it. I think is maybe. If you're going to do future stuff, great. He doesn't have to be in the future stuff. If you're establishing and setting us up initially, maybe that intro prologue is Marcus, and then there's a time jump of 20 years, and then he's back later or something like that. I think as a character, I'm not sure I want to watch a whole movie of him leading it. I think I'd rather see some fresh faces, some original characters, littered's the wrong word, that makes it sound negative. Those characters that I do recognise from the franchise as supporting acts. And
I guess the struggle with that is that it's in the games, obviously the Cog are a bit of an antagonistic force. They're not sort of the good guys, and they do that by having Delta Squad, and they're sort of an outsider bunch of soldiers that are sort of operating almost outside of the Cog, and they've all got their own sort of origin stories of being rejected by this fascist system. how do you have a movie where you aren't playing those main characters? Do you go completely off piste and what do you call them? Not even have cog soldiers. Do you just have the, what do you call it, the outsider people?
Yeah.
People
so there's this whole, this idea of the outsiders. I think would actually work pretty strongly. A lot of people aren't huge fans of the way the story's gone in recent games. I quite like it, especially if you read some of the recent books. It gives a lot more depth to it. I'm wary of video game adaptations trying to recreate stuff, not one for one, but just redo stuff that I've already seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see Marcus Phoenix in this in a big way. I want to see him because the character's established in the games, and this movie I would assume is going to be non-canon. It'd be great if it was, but I don't know how, it's going to open a can of worms and be really tricky for them to do that. But yeah, I'm much more inclined to say I want I want an original story that links to the story that I already know exists in interesting ways and exciting ways. And I'm happy for Marcus to be a big hero in a feature. But yeah, I just would like to see new original characters that we've not seen before. Alex, I don't know.
I mean, otherwise you're playing with pre-established expectations of what we want to see,
Yep.
and then you're walking such a tightrope there of how much of what everybody's seen are we going to show, and are we going to show it as well as we showed it the first time around?
Exactly. Yeah.
It just feels like it's not worth touching that kind of thing.
Have either of you
but it has
seen
to
the
be
Halo movie?
sort
The
of
Halo
tickled a
TV
little
show?
bit. Sorry, what'd you say, mate?
I've watched the first episode of the Halo TV show. I've seen nothing
So yeah,
else.
well, we're talking about pre-established expectations. I was wondering if you had seen because I haven't, the Halo show, because they have Master Chief in that, who is like apparently just like wisecracking, speaking. He's got his helmet off. He's like chatting up women and stuff like that. He's just like totally unlike John 117.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that was probably a mistake. Again, I'm all for originality, but what they're doing there, they're not being original. They're just taking too many liberties. I'm fine for different takes on characters, but I think too many liberties have been taken there with the character. And I'm just sort of scanning lots of thoughts in my head. I think there's so I'm just thinking of those four main guys. So okay, let's think of Marcus, Dom, Cole, and Bed. That original set of characters. Mm-hmm. They're like what you just said, Alex. There's so much that's been done with them already that I think if you're just going to use them, you're already setting yourself up to fail, because it's going to be too much to juggle, and you're not going to be able to please everybody. And I would just rather they were used in small doses and played to those strengths that we know. So, I don't have to explain, what Cole's strengths are, for example, but all he needs to do really is show up and say his lines and take down some locust or swarm or whatever. I would worry if they were going to try and do a big fresh take on these characters that are already so I don't want to say cartoony. That word gets used a lot with Gears, because it may lose some of the charm that the game brings to them. I'm happy for their flavour to just be kind of drizzled over it, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, because you want to appeal to fans, but then fans are going to be your biggest critics, and that's where you're going to struggle. If you solely appeal to, or think you're appealing to fans, like Welcome to Raccoon City, by just going, remember the colour of the box of the shotgun shells? We got the colour right. Like, you can't, if you're just going to do that, then they are going to be the people who also pull you up on all the other stuff that you've missed. You've got to, you can't go with that much of a fine-tooth comb over the source material to just completely recreate it for the sake of the people that already know it, because why would we want to see that again?
Yeah.
I can interact with that in a video game. I don't need to see somebody doing it on the screen. As you say, having that indication or that like the reverence or the sticking the little bits of it in there, peppering it over the source material is great. Like, oh yeah, hey look, there's Coltrane. That's cool. I'm glad they put Coltrane in here, but you don't want it or need it to be entirely about those people.
No, and it's that balancing act of this is the first one as well. Like there's that expectation. You can almost do the first one and then kind of do whatever you want after. Once you've re-established a new set of rules, a new set of characters, you're going to have those kind of anchor points and reference points and recognizable characters in this first one, I think, for it to please fans and to be a success. Yeah, I'm
Start with a slow pan up from a corpse of Carmine and just go from there.
yeah.
Oh, you've got to have a Carmine in there.
Start
don't
with a
you? Yeah, I
Carmine
forgot
funeral or whatever, and then you've got us.
Yeah.
Like, we'll go from there.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Yeah, so kind of connected to this, and this is one of the more difficult things I've been struggling to think about. When it comes to casting, there is obviously a huge campaign from fans and the person himself to have Dave Batista play Marcus Phoenix. But we can talk about wider casting, but I think let's talk about Big Dave first. David, would you like to see Dave Batista play Marcus Phoenix? Do you think he's the right choice, or do you have any other thoughts on who could maybe play the character for this live action movie?
I am continually surprised by the sort of depth that Batista is able to do in his acting, because he just looks like a meathead, but actually there's an odd movie where he's got some range in him.
Yeah.
He's not just a total meathead that just grunts on screen. He is a fairly okay actor.
Mm-hmm.
It's the obvious pick. Is that the lazy pick? Maybe, but is the obvious pick always the bad idea? I don't know. I could, if they said, right, we're going with Batista, I could see it and I could get on board with it. Equally, if they thought, no, we're going to go in a different direction, I would be fine with that as well. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Problem I have, I don't really think I like Dave Batista. Like you just said, I think he does have range. I think he's done some great stuff. I don't think he's my first. I don't really have a first choice for Marcus Phoenix, but I don't feel like he's the right choice. Also, and I've mentioned budget, I feel like if he's in this, it just has to be about him. It's because he's going to be unless he takes a huge pay cut, which I don't know, maybe he's willing to do because he's made it very clear that he's a big fan and he wants to, and he's already been involved with the update they did with Gears 5.
Yeah.
But so maybe he wouldn't be expensive, but I am concerned, would he be in this if he was a support? Because like I said, I think Marcus should be a supporting character. I think he would want to be in it if Marcus is a supporting character. So it's either going to be the Dave Batista show or it's going to be someone else. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the fact that he tweeted this out almost as if it's a social media audition for the role kind of shows that they've not thought about casting and they haven't made any decisions yet, or he's not aware of where they are with that process. Yeah. I can't think of anything that he's done as a lead other than that weird West Ham sniper thing that he did that apparently was garbage. Yeah, he has always struck me as somebody who is a steady hand supporting lightly comedic meathead.
Yep.
Guardians of the Galaxy is the obvious part of that. Yep. I enjoyed his presence in is he in Blade Runner? He was pretty terrifying in that, wasn't he? I don't think it's a bad choice. I don't know why people are saying he needs to be Marcus Phoenix, because I don't know, having not played the DLC, I don't know if he actually has a part in Gears 5 stuff.
The way that
his own
DLC
character.
works, the way that DLC works is you essentially swap out Marcus's model for Dave Batista's model, and he's recorded every single line for the game as well. The performance is fine. I would say it's not. It didn't blow me away, but yeah. So you essentially replace Marcus with Dave Batista as Marcus Phoenix.
Okay. I mean, having seen him wrestle for many, many years, I never expected him to be able to act his way out of a paper bag, because I thought promo-wise in WWE he was so shit. Yeah. Even wrestling, he just looked like he was, all of his limbs were stuck together with super glue. I just don't understand how he managed to transition his way into something, because I think even in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, I looked at it and I remember kind of feeling that sort of wrestling fans association with him, like, I know this guy, none of you guys know who this is, but I know Dave Batista from the wrestling. I knew him before he was cool. I still think he was pretty average in the first Guardians, and he really came into his own as it moved on from there, when they let him loose with the comedy elements a little bit. But before that, I would have said he's not right for anything.
I agree. We know I like a lot of the Marvel stuff, I really do, and I like Guardians of the Galaxy. I think the fandoms are very loud, and they that character Drax and Dave Bautista bought stuff that they're gonna like almost anything that's put in front of them. I'm not trying to take credit away from him because he's good, and I actually just watched the holiday special Guardians of the Galaxy, and he and the Mantis character are basically the features in that. And give him his credit, he made me laugh a lot. This isn't supposed Marcus Phoenix isn't supposed to make me laugh, so
he's not funny, no.
I'm not really looking for that from him. I think the reason Dave Bautista is funny, Drax is funny, is because he's Dave Bautista doing the dumb comedy that he does, and that's kind of why it lands. And what I will say, I don't know if either of you have played the Guardians of the Galaxy game, I think the Drax in that game is better than the Batista version.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, and that game went on the radar a little bit, but it was critically praised, and people who have played it said, actually, this game, story-wise and performance-wise, is brilliant. And I came away from that game thinking that the Drax in that game is not as dumb. He's kind of plays dumb or so separate from the culture in Guardians of the Galaxy. In the game, he's comes off way more intelligent and kind of more belittling to people.
Right.
I much preferred that version of the character, but I like Dave Bautista. I don't think he's right for what I want. I'm not sure he can carry it, but then again, if it is just big dumb all the money action, maybe it would be fine. I'm not against it. If he's cast, fine. I'll take it. But it is strange how I do see, I'm very sort of ingrained in the Gears fandom. There's very loud, has to be Dave Bautista, number one Dave Bautista. Well, I don't know. I don't think it does.
It may appeal from a sort of an element of the Keanu Reeves, John Wick style thing, because Keanu Reeves is a hell of a cool guy, but he's not Laurence Olivier or Daniel Day-Lewis, and he was able to carry this like really understated badass character really, really well by just doing the Neo thing again, which is also another very understated character. So Marcus Phoenix obviously has layers to him, and John DiMaggio is an incredible talent who is iconic in his portrayal of him. But as Dave was talking about his range earlier, I don't think Dave Bautista's range is massive, but it's in enough. It's big enough to be able to carry this sort of, disgruntled, grizzled veteran. If they play him as like an older character, especially.
Exactly.
You're largely winning me round to your argument, because I'm thinking like there's two main reasons you would have someone like Dave Bautista, and like The Rock has done a lot of it. He's obviously improved over the years, but when he started acting, he was awful. And there's two main reasons. One, you think he's going to, like, if you're going to bring like a big celebrity that are famous for certain things to a role, it's either do you think they can bring something to the role, i.e. they've got a pre-established body of work within the scope of what your script is shooting for that they can cater for specifically and do really well, or they're going to get bums on seats. And I'm not sure Dave Bautista necessarily ticks either of those boxes.
I agree, and it sounds like we're being really kind of negative and critical, but I think we're just trying to sort of get into the weeds of it here. I'm on board with that, and you're right. He's not The Rock. He's not going to put as many bums in seats as The Rock. Just because Dave Bautista is a fan of the role doesn't necessarily mean he should play it. Yeah, and just to underline, I'm trying not to be overtly negative about it. I just think that's how I feel, and I think we're trying to be honest about it here.
Sure.
Okay, well, thinking about anything else, did you have any other ideas? Dave Bautista is a wrestler. I think it's very easy. Another thing I've seen people doing their dream casting choices.
Bray Wyatt.
And it's like, well, people have they do lineups for who they think they should be in, and there's like 4 wrestlers. Everyone wants John Cena to be in it as well. Everyone wants The Rock to be in it, and Dave Bautista. And I just think, just calm down. That being said, when it comes to some of the female roles, I do actually think they could dip into the wrestling pool. And I will get this out of the way first, because I don't think John Cena should be in this film. I don't think The Rock should be in this film.
John Cena could play Anya.
John Cena might be okay as Baird. As long as Bear doesn't
and
rap.
I like John Cena. Me saying I don't think he should be in this is not me saying John Cena. I've come around to John Cena a lot, and I actually think he's a better actor than Dave Batista.
Yeah, he is definitely.
Yeah. But
they just want big lads. They just want big brick shit houses to fit into the armor. That's what this seems to.
They do
smack off to me.
This sort of jumps back to what I was saying earlier, where I don't think those.
I'm trying to think of a wrestling cast of this entire movie. So like, who's the Coltrane? Like, I'm trying to think. Like, so my wrestling knowledge is way out here. So like, Bobby Lashley, is he a good?
Keith Lee.
Bobby Lashley crossed my mind. Yeah. Who was the guy from Brooklyn Nine-Nine that everybody...
I was going to say, the lazy choice for Coltrane is Terry Crews.
Yeah. Who was apparently quoted saying, "Yeah, I'd love to be in it," and I just thought,
of course he would.
Yeah, I bet you would. Yeah. I got a few thoughts on wider acting choices, but just to sort of give some context of why I think this. As I mentioned, I think characters like Marcus and Baird and Cole, they don't need to be the leads. They can be supporting. If you want to get the big, huge guys to be those guys, great. I'm happy for some more understated new cast members to be brought in. I think Daniel Kaluuya from Jordan Peele's films would be really good as a lead. Mm-hmm. He hasn't really done... And this might be recency bias because I watched Nope last week, which
I really want to see
I
that.
Loved. I won't spoil it for you. Like, really, really good. And he's shown a great range. He's in Black Panther. I don't know if he's in Black Panther 2, but he hasn't really... I could see him translating to a bigger action sci-fi, and I think this could be a role for him as a part of a new squad or an outsider. But then when it comes to the female characters, just going back to the wrestling, we've got people like Rhea Ripley, Jamie Hayter, who are like these two big, like, powerful women at the moment in wrestling that I sort of was thinking, I was like, I actually would not mind them being in this. And if you want star power or a broader appeal and bring in a different audience, that could work. Florence Pugh, who has been in Marvel movies. She also played Paige in the film about Paige's life, that wrestling movie.
Oh, yeah.
I think she's a great up-and-comer. I say up-and-comer, that sounds really sort of like I'm talking down about her. That's not what I mean. But, yeah, just... I don't think those big guys that have got to fit into the armour have to be the leads. I'm happy for some more understated people to come in. But any thoughts on any other actors that you think could jump into this and maybe carry it, or you'd like to see, haven't tried this sort of stuff? Alex?
Wow, I don't know if I have really thought about who I'd want to have acting in this. You've done some good research there.
It is difficult.
Mae Young.
Mae Young?
I have to dig her up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember what the
it's just David showing his wrestling up to how far back out of touch David's wrestling knowledge. She's still going? No. Sorry, Alex.
How's that hand she gave birth to doing? I don't know. David's got a shirt for it. I quite like... I've just been looking at the Callisto Protocol, and it was cool to see in that game is the... I don't know the girl's name, but the girl from The Boys who plays...
My
Kiriko?
My further notes is there's quite a few people in The Boys that could be in this.
Absolutely.
You're thinking of...
yeah, let's look it up so I don't sound like an ignorant idiot.
And Ignoramus.
Yeah. I don't even know if I got the character bloody name right.
That's annoying. Usually when you search it, it comes up straight away.
Here we go.
Karen Fukuhara, is that it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she played Kimiko. Yeah. So
and
she's obviously now in the gaming sphere, so you never know.
I actually think that's a great shout because I was thinking more of the guy characters from The Boys that I thought, could Anthony Starr be in this or be a villain? And sorry, I'm just sort of taking it away from you here. As absolutely shit as the most recent Resident Evil Netflix series was, the main villain was played by Paula Nunez, who's a Mexican actress, and she was one of the better parts about it. And if you're going to go for a villain, I think, in this movie, so if you look at the games, we've got so Queen Raina, who, you know, had transformed and become part of the Swarm, is the villain of this movie going to be a semi-human, semi-monster character, practical or CG? I think about something like Stranger Things. We just had Vecna in Stranger Things. Is it going to be a take like that? If we have a female, I think Paula Nunez was incredible as a villain in that awful show. and she could come along. Yeah, I'm sort of spitballing really, but yeah, I think the boys actress you've mentioned would be a great shout.
And Laz Alonso as well.
Yes,
there's a Coltrane for you there. I think Mother's Milk from the boys.
Yeah,
he'd be great.
That would actually be and so I think that's the point of. I guess he's got the build. He has got the build. Although
he's a big lad.
What's funny is I've seen a picture from The Boys season 4, and he's dropped a load of weight.
Has he?
He was kind of unrecognisable in the picture, but
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I think the cast in that show is stellar, and that's one of the great shows of the last few years. And I'm not saying just migrate the cast over, but you've got lots to choose from. And The Boys, this is actually a great point because The Boys does that utterly bonkers, bombastic mentalness, but actually, has kind of like satirized politics and stuff better than any other show out there at the moment. And they've managed to nail two different things. And if they could get that kind of tone, obviously Gears of War isn't superhero, but maybe that's the sort of thing they should look towards.
Yeah, and you can maybe you can transpose a archetype character like Huey into this Gears movie where it's. I don't want it to feel too much like Sam Witwicky from the Transformers films, but it's clearly a tried and tested scenario of there's almost like our eyes through one character. The audience is, is this character because you're the ones questioning everything. You're the one scared of everything. You're not ingrained in what's already going on and established. So they may go that sort of way to make it more human.
I think that ties in perfectly with The Outsiders as well. They're not necessarily this group of people that's not built to be soldiers, but kind of get dragged into it. And you could have a youngster from there.
I think the sort of size, bulk, and weight. I mean, you can do it in many ways in a TV show or a movie. I do think size, bulk, and weight of the Cog soldiers is important because certainly in the earlier Gears games, maybe not so much in the later ones when you start actually controlling some of the Outsiders, but they look bigger and better fed, and I think that is actually quite important for the story.
Something else I wanted to say, which Gears has on its side, since we sort of mentioned it already, I can't remember if it was in the previous episode, the roster of characters in Gears of War is incredibly diverse, and which just broadens their pool of choice here in ways that other shows can kind of only dream of. Other movies would want to dream of. If you're you're adapting Resident Evil, it's like, oh, okay, we're going to have to just pick all white people here, and I'm not going to start
or not, and then upset everybody like
exactly. Whereas here we've got we've got Latin characters, Polynesian characters. Serra, the planet in Gears, is not Earth, but the cultures and stuff is sort of very influenced from us.
There's a good age range as well.
Yes, age range. Yeah, strong female characters. You're spoilt for choice with this, and
it's like a bit of a Walking Dead vibe, hasn't it? Where it's kind of like a real melting pot of stuff.
Which I reference again. It's going to need to be an ensemble cast show. It can't just star one person, which means the bill for the show is going to go through the roof. You need to have a balance of credibility, I think, with the actors. You can't just have a bunch of unknowns. I don't know if I think, do they need to have some kind of legendary actor in there? I was trying to think of other people. I would love to see Sigourney Weaver in there at some point as maybe. So who's the
lady? I was going to ask you this.
Person who runs the Cog.
She's got like the cat. She's got like the cat skin boots. Do you know who I'm talking about? She's a Cog soldier. She's an older lady. She's from the islands, I think.
Yes, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I'm not going to try and sit here and remember it. No, I do. I'm just having a terrible.
Was that the character? Is that a different character we were talking?
No, I know who you're thinking of. But because I was first thinking of, I'm just dropping the names completely now. The character that runs the Cog, Jin. So Jin, First Minister Jin, she comes to on the face of the robot at the start of like Gears 4 and stuff. I thought that could be a Sigourney Weaver character. This is all again. We have no context about when the show is going to be set and how connected to the games it's going to be. But my point being, ensemble cast, you're going to have to find that balance of young up and comers, recognizable stars that's going to even make people want to watch it, and which makes me think it's going to be the most expensive thing Netflix have ever done.
Do you know what would be if when you mentioned Kim, Jin, it reminded me of, is it Kim at the start of Gears of War 1.
Yeah.
So they sort of make him out to be a main character and then just murder him.
Yeah.
Maybe they could do that with Batista.
Yeah.
Make you think that he's going to be the main character.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
off him right away.
Give him the old Sean Bean Gears of War.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones treatment, yeah.
Or people were quite. I liked the series, but people were quite mad at the new He-Man show because they get rid of He-Man at the end of episode.
Oh,
1.
the Kevin Smith one, yeah.
Which people were very upset about.
They were.
Yeah, so it is a difficult one to think about. It's so many unknowns at the moment. You know, we don't know if they give us a synopsis sometime soon. Maybe it can give us a bit more context and we could narrow it down a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. We're going to start to wrap up. Any final thoughts or hopes or wishes, David, for this Netflix movie? We're going to talk more about the animated series on another episode, but for the movie, you know, any final thoughts?
Please be violent. Please be good.
I think that's fair.
If there's no Lancer kill in the first 5 minutes, they f***ed it.
Yeah, I think you need to open strong, and
Yeah.
which is why I mentioned you open with Emergence Day or something like that. You can just
That would
imagine
be so
people
cool.
sat there eating their lunch or whatever, and then suddenly the earthquake comes and people just get massacred like there. And there we go. And then you can do a little time jump. Everything's established. We don't need to see them figuring out who the Locusts are. But yeah.
We don't need Uncle Ben dying again.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
No one
Alex,
needs that.
any other final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. I just feel like this is the harder task of the two. I think the animated show gives you rise to just, as you said right at the beginning, you could bring back all the original voice cast. You can just smash it out and it can just be a continuation or it can be a retelling of the film. The game. Whereas this cannot be that, and it needs to be something distinctive enough, but related enough to the source material to get people on board who are fans of it. It can't carry itself on just the name of Gears of War, especially on Netflix, where you're getting a lot of people who don't play games because they're watching Netflix instead. So it's as you say, it's going to need some kind of star power and some kind of budget behind it to work, but I really hope that this doesn't disappoint. And as I said earlier on, if this is just mediocre, that's the worst of all.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, it's going to do more harm than it's worth even doing.
Cool.
Okay, well, yeah, we are going to wrap it up then. This isn't going to be the last time we'll talk about this movie. We're going to follow along. We've been here from the announcement of the idea. Any small nugget of news that comes along, we're going to have thoughts on and try and tear apart, as I'm sure lots of Gears of War fans will be doing
in
too.
the Cog Hole.
In the Cog Hole, yeah. Can't
Straight
wait.
up your cog hole.
Yes, so as previously mentioned, yes, if you found this podcast on the Gears Intel Twitter account, great, fantastic, but please do subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. We'll have more stuff on the movie over there, offering various kinds of videos and lovely stuff like that. Thanks for joining me today, guys. You can follow the panel on Twitter. I am K_D_B_. David is David Smiley1. Alex is Super Thrillix. And you can follow Gears Intel at Gears_Intel. As usual, links in the podcast description and all that lovely stuff. Until next time, thanks again for listening, and remember the fallen.
Bye.
Yeah.